The name Candy Bomber, I think, is something that's respected and cherished across the globe.
He is the symbol of the German-American friendship. I cannot think of any individual which laid such a foundation just a few years after the war like he did.
There is no one that comes into his sphere of influence that remains a stranger.
It started with the Berlin airlift. The Soviet Union had cut off ground supply routes to West Berlin. Panic grew over shortages of food, water, and medical aid. Only 9 months after the fledgling Air Force was made a separate branch in the military by Congress, it faced the largest humanitarian airlift challenge in history. C-47 and C-54 cargo aircraft crews flew basic necessities into Berlin at regular intervals, day after day, flying more than 189,000 flights, eventually delivering more than 2.3 million tons of supplies. Gail Halvorsen, a lieutenant at the time, piloted one of these aircraft as part of the effort called Operation Vittles. The story goes that he saw some German children near the fence at Tempelhof Airport while dropping off supplies. He spoke with them as best he could. He was struck by their gratitude and fascination. At the time, American children would automatically hold out their hands to anyone in uniform, begging for candy, but not these children. They asked for nothing more than what he had already brought on his plane. Reaching into his pocket, he decided to give them the 2 sticks of gum from his rations, worried it wouldn't be enough for all of them. He told them he'd be back though, and would wiggle his wings so they'd know it was him. Risking disciplinary action, Halvorsen talked the rest of his crew into donating the candy from their rations, dropping it with makeshift parachutes over Berlin for the children. When his chain of command found out, they weren't pleased, but recognized the goodwill he was fostering with former enemies. By the end, Operation Little Vittles dropped more than 23 tons of donated candy, and Halvorsen earned the nicknames the Chocolate Flyer, the Candy Bomber, and Uncle Wiggly Wings. His generosity moved the city of Berlin and repaired relations between the U.S. and Germany. The Berlin airlift gave people what they needed to survive, but Halvorsen gave them hope. He returned many times over the years, both in his military career and after, always to a hero's welcome. Halvorsen passed away in February 2022, but his memory lives on in the people he touched. Along with ceremonial honors, Air Mobility Command decided to honor Halvorsen's legacy by rededicating a C-17 Globemaster III, the spirit of the Candy Bomber.
When you look back at what this specific C-17 did for the Afghan operations for the evacuees last August, that there couldn't be a more eloquent story to tie the legacy of Gail Halvorsen with the current airlifters of Air Mobility Command.
Along with the new moniker, the aircraft from Charleston Air Force Base, South Carolina, needed a new paint job and new artwork.
Working on the design for this was a real collaborative effort. General Minihan had the vision, and for me as a designer, I just worked with his vision of saying the spirit of the Candy Bomber, and he wanted the plane with the airdrop. So as a designer, at first you think, oh, I'm gonna make this great big piece of art, but actually there's a lot of limitations that people may not realize. So the font had to be a certain font. It had to be a certain shape, like a football shape. There were certain elements that had to be on it, and the maintenance guys really wanted it to be very simple.
The C-17 and crew traveled to Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam in Hawaii for a fresh coat of paint.
There's a lot of finer points that people don't really think about. It's not as simple as painting a room. There's some finer things like when you're laying down tape, putting down the same color so that it doesn't seep under and creep under the paint.
It took a week to paint the aircraft, along with the new logo, before returning to South Carolina. Later, the C-17 and crew participated in a ceremony in Provo, Utah, officially dedicating the aircraft in honor of Halvorsen. The next day, the C-17 participated in a flyby with the C-54. The C-54 dropped candy with parachutes over Spanish Fork, Utah, just like Halvorsen used to do almost 75 years ago.
think you've got an excellent example in the C-17 of an incredibly capable airlift platform, certainly a descendant of the great airplane, the C-54. They're really wonderful pillars of honor to those who fly, fix, and support them.
Being able to see the design on that C-17 makes me feel really proud just to be a small part of this effort. The C-17s travel all over the world, and they do deliver hope and humanitarian goods to people in lots of crisis. And to me, it's just an honor being part of that legacy.
Throughout the past 75 years of Air Force history, there have been leaders, visionaries, people who saw what needed to be done and made it happen. Halvorsen epitomized service, excellence, and integrity. He set the tone for today's Air Force, as ready to take up arms as it is to lend a helping hand.